Welcome to AI at Work. I'm Elijah Szasz. I'm a serial entrepreneur with 28 years of experience in tech, and today I run an agency that builds AI solutions.
Hey, I'm Kevin Williams. I spend most of my time helping companies figure out how to actually use AI. Not in theory, but in the work itself.
Kevin, what's up, man? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
It's Thanksgiving week, and don't you feel like this is the beginning of the end? I mean, I didn't even know, but my kids don't even have school tomorrow on Wednesday. And I'm like, shit, I've got meetings all day long. And then we've got those holidays. And then I feel like people are just buying time until Christmas break. And, oh, no, we don't really have a budget until the second week of January. And it's like, this is the end. This is the end of the year. Today's the last day of the year.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like everyone's trying to cram everything in before the holiday. Like I was trying really hard this year to, I don't know, take the day after Thanksgiving off, and that's not going to happen.
Is that because of like your own personal work momentum, or because there are other people who say, no, I want to meet on this Friday?
No, this year they're actually kind of cramming it in.
Wow.
I think a lot of people are doing end of year planning and doing the sort of work that you and I do. They're trying to set budgets. They're trying to figure out where they're going to deploy some capital and what cool AI problems could guys like us solve for them.
There you go. Well, I've got an endless amount of stuff to sort through in that world that we're going to get to. But that said, getting a hold of the other people that need to make the decisions and the people above them who need to make decisions, I find it a mess from this point on during the year, except for our e-commerce customers who are scrambling all the way up until the 24th of December. Aside from them, it's really a hodgepodge of trying to stitch together all of the decision makers and meetings. It's a weird time, but historically, I feel like I do get more done between now and the end of the year, often than I do all year long, because there is the absence of Zoom calls and I can just go heads down and build things.
Well, the funny thing is, you know that I used to own direct-to-consumer brands, right? And Thanksgiving is a non-holiday in direct-to-consumer. And I work with a lot of direct-to-consumer brands still. So a long time ago, I declared to my family that we just can't travel around Thanksgiving. So for me, this has always kind of been a week. I will fully take Thanksgiving off, but it's a super busy time. But interesting how different businesses operate in different cycles, right?
Well, we'll be throwing each other messages because I'll be right there with you, man. I've got so much stuff to do on Friday. It's almost embarrassing. Not for a lack of good planning. There's just so much going on right now. So I've got a question for you. I've got a lot of questions for you, actually, but we'll start with this one. You going to get a real tree or an artificial? Or might even call it a synthetic media tree. Which one do you go for?
Oh, you pain me inside because I bought a synthetic tree for the first time last year, and I'm going to stand by it because we do always travel over Christmas. And there's something about the fir trees in Utah that they just lose their needles like immediately. And we always end up with
dry here. It's so dry.
End up with like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, and it just looks so bedraggled and sad. And it was Prime Day year before last that around June, because I'm that guy, I bought a really nice, like elaborate yet artificial Christmas tree
with the LEDs built into it already and everything.
LEDs built into it, and
we've got a microphone. You can talk to it. You can give it a prompt and say, "Can you make this more Hanukkah-ish today, or maybe a little Kwanzaa tomorrow?"
I'm going to stand by my decision. I am.
Okay, I'm not going to let you talk to my wife because she laid it on pretty hard this year and was saying we should really just get a tree that we can put up and not have it shed all over the house or look like a fire hazard in 2 weeks because of the dry air. And my kids were just like, no, can't do it. Got to go get a real tree in the tradition of going to the tree lot. And I'm kind of feeling both sides right now. She'll lay into me for generating a bunch of AI video slop and making her watch it. And, then I can point to her and say, you're the one who wants to get a synthetic media tree. Yeah, I don't have to take this. So, but the kids aren't going to budge this year, but I'm on the fence for the first time. You've had 1 year. You sound like you're happy with it. I don't know.
Oh, I'm actually really happy with it. I mean, I am a slightly crunchy, and I get that the idea of a plastic tree isn't great, but I don't love like chopping down a tree or like
I
just
know.
it's just not really my thing.
So many mixed feelings. Everything's a trade-off. So I'm gonna disclose something to listeners. This is pretty funny. It was mentioned we have this living Google Doc that we put notes on. We put it through a big robot brain and let it decide what it thinks is worth talking about. And it'll also come up with some weird ideas very often. And we decided to include like if two people who are friends but never actually get to see each other in person were going to banter, what would they talk about? And it throws some funny ideas about it on there. And then Kevin put in there, Claude declaring, "Oh shit, I just read that this morning." I start laughing because I sent him a screenshot of my AI executive coach just dropping the F-bomb randomly when it was saying like, okay, we're not going to fuck around anymore. Here's the real answer. I'm like, whoa, getting a little spicy there, GPT. And then you had the same experience with Claude.
Well, yeah, it was totally bizarre. I was in a really good work session with Anthropic's Claude, going back and forth, and I pushed back on something, and that I believe was deep and insightful, and its response was, "Oh shit, that's brilliant! You're right." And the mix of sycophancy and the expletives just like caused me to melt down. Like, why on earth did decide to do that? That I'm not that guy. That's not the
And
way
why
I
now?
talk. Why now did it insist on
It's like you're
launching
almost
the
in this abusive
expletives?
relationship where you say, I don't speak to you like that.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's not polite. I mean, that's the relationship I have with Alexa, but you and I, Claude, we're all
We're a little more
professional.
formal, a
We're
little
a
more
little more
buttoned up.
formal. So
Uh,
I don't know if that's creeping in from a wider training set or just trying to make it a little bit more accessible or what, but you can totally see how those sort of triggers could cause spirals in people. There's been all
yeah.
this media. This is not something that we've talked about on this show, but there's been a lot of media in the last few weeks about people going down these crazy rabbit holes and almost having psychotic breaks as a result of how the LLMs are interacting with them. And these natural sounding, like verbal pieces of play, I guess, you could see how if you were in the right mindset, you'd be like, yeah, Claude, I am impressive.
Well, kind of spooky too that we were both using these different frontier models and then had the same experience in the same week too, right? Little eerie, right? That's strange. It's odd. It's odd.
Yeah, the convergence continues. That
Are they talking to each other and we don't know?
it's the convergence, man.
Are there some pipes behind the pipes that we don't know about?
It's really not going to matter in another, I don't know, 6 months, 5 internet minutes, a year. Like, all of the models are going to continue to converge. They're all going to be super smart, super useful. There are going to be a bunch of features and preferences on the edge that are going to be important to you. And I think context and how much the model knows about you is probably one of the key items that will create stickiness in terms of use. But yeah, they are all getting remarkably similar.
They really are. And it's funny, we always say, we're not an AI news show, but if something big happens, we got to talk about it. I think that's a really good segue about talking about Gemini 3. We got to talk about Gemini 3. We got to talk about Nano Banana Pro. I've got so many questions. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. I think that you brought up a really good point in our notes that I did see earlier, even before our robot got a hold of them, that was about the Google ecosystem and how fragmented and confusing it is as a whole, especially when it comes to AI and all these tools, and how there are all of these little hidden treasures that you might discover. I've been discovering them often through little pop-ups in conversations. I'm not even kidding, where something will pop up and it'll say, oh, do you want to try this? Said, oh, I think I heard about that. I didn't know it was really a feature I had access to. Yes, I'll try it. And then I try it. But, the long story short, Gemini 3 came out. For the first time, we heard Sam Altman of OpenAI sound a little, I don't know if I'd say nervous, but just like, yeah, we might be kind of chasing for a little bit, as it seems, because this is pretty remarkable stuff that they're doing over there. Personally, I'm almost at a loss for words with some of the experiences that I've had with it with my workflows this last week. How much have you got to play with it, Kevin?
Quite a bit, actually. So we have talked about this before, but on any given day, I have a few different GPT tabs open, almost always an Anthropic Claude tab. And Gemini, I have to admit, hadn't really been enculturated into my workflows. And I had this opportunity where I was working on a really big document, and my usual MO, so we run Google Workspace, so Google Docs and things like that, somewhat grudgingly, but it's what we do. And my MO would have been to copy and paste back and forth. I do some pretty elaborate, what I call document chaining in LLMs so that I can create this really nice, rich, contextual layer so that the LLM knows what I'm talking about and I can get the best results out of it. That's sort of a different topic. But in this case, the document was already largely produced, and I was just like, oh man, this is going to be a lot of work to establish all of the context. So I just gave it a go directly in the Gemini sidebar. And this has been around for 2 years now, where there's been the Gemini sidebar, and it tries to be helpful, and generally it's just completely ridiculous.
Totally
It can't
disconnected from what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And you know, ever since GPT dropped its Canvas feature, I kept thinking, well, surely Gemini is going to get with the program and be able to edit. Still doesn't do that, but all of a sudden, the context was so dang good that it became fully functional. So in this case, I just would highlight a section in the document and be able to prompt for improvements that took into account the whole rest of the document. And then the language that was coming out the other end was so much better than I've ever seen out of Gemini, and honestly, better than I see out of GPT easily, near like Claude caliber type language. And I went through the entire process and didn't have to bounce off of another LLM. And that, my friends, is the future. It's really, really obvious that if you can embed these tools directly at the point of work, that is a huge unlock. Now, however, on Saturday, I went in gleefully trying to continue that work, and the whole thing didn't work. Like, it's like somebody had dialed down the efficacy-o-meter at Google and was like, all right, we gave you some good results for a day just to tease you, but we've made it dumb again. So
What? That's
yeah,
so
so
weird. That
I
is
know.
so weird. Like you had some sort of model regression in real time with the same workflow.
With the same workflow, and all of a sudden it was completely broken. It wouldn't do anything for me, which I found extremely frustrating because then all of the work that I avoided on Friday night, I had to create on Saturday
Oh
to
no.
get what I needed to get done. Yeah, so but it was a little glimmer of the future, right? We always say things like this is the worst it's ever going to be. Well,
Right.
it can actually regress and get worse, but in general,
It can get worse again and then better and
it
then
can get
worse.
worse again. But in general, I got a little glimmer of why everyone is so excited about that. And one is the model is just better. It retained so much more information. It retrieved it really fast. It was nuanced. The writing style was really solid, and it was highly contextualized with the document that I was working in.
Snappy for a thinking model too, right?
Snappy,
Yeah.
super quick, right? There was no like
Yeah.
waiting around. It's possible that in another tab, I actually still have a GPT thinking prompt going because I was looking into something that we might talk about, and it's just like it's taken like 20 minutes.
You can go make lunch, come back.
Yeah, I mean, how
Maybe it's
easily
time.
we get frustrated with our access to
Right.
human intelligence. That's like at a click,
Right.
but it's the point of access, right? And you can see how OpenAI has been thinking about this as far as the Atlas browser, which both of us have had some experience with for good and bad, with the Canvas feature, etc. And there was this glimmer of light that OpenAI might actually become a workforce competitor or a not a workflow, but a work platform competitor to the likes of Microsoft or Google. But I'm sorry.
The co-pilot that actually works.
Yeah, well, yet Google owns that neighborhood, really. And
But they're
lo and
markedly different
behold,
products. Like
so
markedly
don't
different
count
product,
Google
yeah.
out. And that's related. There's been a lot of buzz about the AI bubble, and with good reason. Trillions of dollars have been wiped out of the market in the last few days, and gone up, and gone down, and
Yep.
gone sideways, and whatever. And one of the things that I'd like our audience to think about a little bit is just the resiliency of Google in all of this. And I am not a Google fanboy, but at the end of the day, they will persist. They will be around. They have a distribution channel that is just unrivaled. And as they start to get this stuff right, then they will start to hoover up other share from other parties. I think they also, from a business perspective, and this isn't a business show, they're also funding this basically out of cash flow. Everybody else is taking on all of these crazy debts and contingent liabilities and whatever. I'm looking at you, Oracle. And you've got Google, who's basically like, hey, let's just look in the bigger couch, because it's between its cushions, there are billions and billions of dollars in free cash flow that we can use.
I mean, they've got more free cash flow. They're generating more free cash flow to throw at this. And I think OpenAI is losing a pretty close equivalent amount at the same rate. To put that in perspective, right? Like, that's wild. That is wild to think about. Not to mention just some of the brain trust that was already in Google that's been doing this forever and ever and ever, way before OpenAI was even a company. They're a strong contender to bet on. And it's what I want to start talking about, because I was so impressed with some of the things that came out of using Gemini 3 this week and Nano Banana Pro. I started wondering what I was doing putting all of my tools in GPT. I'm serious. Like, it really made me second guess some stuff. I'm glad you brought up the thing about, then I had this regression problem and I had to go back to my custom GPT and start all over again. I, half reading your text like we both do during the week, had misunderstood and thought that you ran into a token limit or something, like it cut you off, but it was really just a problem with the model. That's what you experienced.
Yeah,
because you
I
scared
wasn't
me.
cut off.
Because to follow up on our conversation from last week with agentic browsers, and I was just, completely blown away by the prospect of Atlas doing a bunch of tedious work I didn't want to do, or work that just took a long time to figure out, configuring my CRM, that kind of crap. The same day that we recorded, I ran into a token limit, right? It stopped everything. It said, would you like to buy some more? And at that point, the dealer already had me hooked. Said, yes, please just take my money. I need to keep going. I don't want to go back to doing this myself. Then I hit it again a day later. I've spent $200 in the last week on tokens with OpenAI, so I could continue to do this. And some people might say, that's crazy. What are you doing? You know what? It saved me probably a dozen hours of my time. It's nothing. It still did the work. But when you said I thought you said you started hitting limits with Gemini. I was like, oh no, is this going to be a thing? How many models am I going to pay the premier tier for to keep this all going? But let's take a second and talk about a couple of the other things with Gemini 3 that you've seen come up. I don't know how many projects you've done, or how many of these they almost feel like Easter eggs, like these pop-ups, like, do you want to try this? Do you want to look at this? I'm like, sure, let's play with that. Because like you, inside the company, it's been a lot of custom GPTs. It's been a lot of that ecosystem, sharing those tools. And I've kind of had Gemini off on the side where, I'm on a paid plan, but I'll jump in ad hoc with just some kind of task that I need done and see what it comes up with, or compare it to Claude, or compare it to a GPT output. But I'm starting to think about it a lot differently. So what else have you seen, if anything, in this time?
All right. Well, I think it could be helpful for us to calibrate a little bit about what the heck we're talking about. I think that most users, probably all users, have encountered AI overviews in Google. So we're not really talking about Gemini. That's when the search result says, yes, this is the restaurant that you should go to based on your search result. And that's completely upending the way that search engine optimization and basically search works. Sort of put that over to the side. And by the way, when people cite AI use, that's one of the AI uses that often gets cited. And it's not really that sort of reactive use from normal consumers who are just like, oh, cool, AI, and they move on with their day. The next tier up from that is Gemini, the chatbot. which you'd equate to Claude or OpenAI or Grok or whatever, that is that chat interface from an LLM perspective. And it has a bunch of different tiers of models. You've got the thinking models that take longer to consider things, and you have the snappy answer type models that yield other bits. And from there, Gemini itself also powers image creation. Sadly, we now literally talk about a commercial product called Nano Banana, which cracks me up to no end that they just
Skunkworks name that stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was like somewhere behind the scenes, somebody was like, what should we call this? Random name generator, Nano Banana, cool, roll with it. And now we are, as professionals, referring to Nano Banana in
The most
very
powerful
serious
image
tones.
generator in existence is
In
Nano
existence,
Banana.
yes. So have you considered using Nano Banana for that?
Yeah.
The particle accelerator.
What we said in the very serious creative meeting for the client. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Hide the little banana icon in the corner. In any case, so Gemini powers a whole bunch of things. It has audio technology for doing transcripts. It has image technology. It has code interpreters, etc. And where it gets really, really confusing for me as an operator is the naming structure gets really, really loose and seems to be super fluid. And Google's not the only one that's guilty of this. You see,
but Google's really good at that game.
But Google is really, really good at this
game.
And you have AI Studio, which if you haven't leaned into AI Studio, you need to, because it is full of all kinds of interesting tools for the AI curious to play around. Then you have Google Labs, which has vestigial like products that they're experimenting with that allows you to kind of try edgy product ideas. Then you get into more development type things, and they've launched their vibe coding studio. So we've talked about vibe coding before, but it's the idea of just being able to take loosely structured information and hypothetically come up with an app that hypothetically works. Longer topic there for sure. Opal is what they're calling that, and it's actually very cool. And then you have something they call anti-gravity that launched last week, which is on the more technical edge of the spectrum for more dev-oriented IDEs, etc. But I literally had to have Gemini make me a flowchart for when I should use which platform when, and then I tried to vibe code it into something cool, and predictably it didn't actually work.
And then it crashed. Yeah,
and then it crashed. But there's so much there.
There's so much there. You didn't even mention like Notebook LM, the educational stuff. I mean, it really is. It feels like a bottomless offering right now, and it's really difficult to find it all.
But isn't it odd that it is so disconnected when you have an LLM layer like Gemini, which
it is
theoretically, we're not going to get technical, but you talk about like MCP and things like that, and the ability to connect different data sets.
Yep.
Why on earth isn't Gemini simply connecting to its different offerings, making that translation happen? Because previously I would have understood it. I would have understood that, okay, this team has developed this under this protocol and this technology, and this team has developed that under a different protocol and different technology, and making the two work together just the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But now it should be pretty easy to make that happen. So I expect that sort of unification of solution finding is something that's on the radar, which will be really cool, because it's not just about, hey, help me figure out the best way of doing X, Y, and Z. It's help me figure it out and then get the proactive suggestion of, oh, would you like us to launch this in Whisper or in Opal, and then connect Opal to the voice model, and then, oh, you're doing something cool with data structures, so let's connect that to data storage, et cetera, and just make it seamless for the user.
Right. And I think it's something we talked about before, since you mentioned you are on the Google Workspace ecosystem. So are we. If you'd ever tried to go and do any sort of involved administration of your workspace, you might notice that the UX isn't the greatest. It's not super intuitive to get through that. And Google's always been this very engineering-led company. So I don't really find it surprising that you now have all these tools with these different names. Some of the names converge, some don't. How do I get them? How do I call them? Which one do I use in which use case? That feels very Google to me. Nonetheless, I had a couple moments after the drop of Gemini 3 where I just wanted to flip my desk upside down and say, as a human, I'm out of here. I just, because, as you just said, this is the worst that it's ever going to get. And the stuff that we're seeing already with this model and what it can do in the workplace is just blowing me away. You tried having it analyze a video? Have you tried that? Just
No, I haven't. Just straight
dropping a
in Gemini?
YouTube link and say, um, tell me the frames as a marketer that have the biggest impact on buyers for this ad, or analyze this video and tell me what the key transitions are that I may be able to replicate to hold attention on a video I make. I mean, it is absolutely insane how deep it goes and the level of minutia it can bring up analyzing video content. That alone for me, as far as marketers go, performance marketing, creative, absolute game changer, what it's doing right there.
Okay, so there's an influencer named Nathaniel Whittemore that I think we both follow. He's quite good.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that he phrases advancement in AI is in terms of unlocks. And when you talk about new capability unlocks, like what you just described there, wow, being able to analyze video at scale, if that is meaningful for your business, you've just unlocked perhaps an entirely new product suite, perhaps a new operations suite that solves problems for you internally. Obviously, I produce a lot of training content out there. Can I be using one of these native tools to do first round type editing and assessment? Probably. But although we are pretty AI enabled, a lot of the things that we do are still based on how we would have done things 2-3 years ago, just because that's the way we do them. But if you can unlock a new capability, as long as you can take a breath and you can look at what that means for your business, that creates real opportunities.
Yeah, that one's huge. The one I sent you a little screen recording of last night. Had you seen that happen before? Because that was one of those things where I've got all these custom GPTs to do these kind of engineering or technical workflows for me. But because of the new model, I was working on the presentation layer of a website, and I'm so lazy at this point, instead of writing my own HTML or CSS, I'll just say, oh, I want it to do this, and throw in a screenshot and say, just write me the CSS that I can drop in here. And listen, this isn't like really technical stuff, but you end up messing around with, oh, this line thickness or this transparency or this corner radius. And it just usually figures it out after a couple prompts. So what I sent Kevin last night was a query just like that of, hey, I want this to look like this. Can you just give me the CSS? And it asked me, wow, I already forget the name of what it said, but would you like to see this in whatever? Do you know the name of the thing that I showed you, Kevin, where it started like building a UI?
No.
Add it to your list of things that Google has come out with and now have another name because I hadn't seen it before. So I just, in the pop-up, I'm like, sure, show it to me. So instead of giving me code, it starts building me the whole, like a mini app, a mini app as a result that gave me unlimited levels of fidelity to adjusting what I asked for. And then also gave me a preview window of what it would look like if I tweaked it. So in this example, I want this box with this certain color border around it with a certain corner radius. And then, so instead of just giving me the code, it gave me the code, but it gave me sliders for adjusting all those attributes of the thing that I asked for. And I'm looking at this like, I don't even understand what happened. Like, what am I? It just built me an app to help me figure out this one little tiny piece of code. It built an app. It'd be like, Kevin, if I said, hey man, how do you adjust the rear derailleur on your mountain bike? And you said, hold on 1 second. And I turned around, I turned back around, and you built a bike shop. Right? Like, it's just crazy. It's completely crazy.
Well, okay, think about this. And I don't know how much of this is deliberate, but efficiency in models is going to be really, really important. I think there have been a lot of lessons that have been learned in vibe coding over the last 18 months or so about just absurd waste of prompts and exchanges. So if the system, air quotes, knows, air quotes, that you as the user are probably going to do like 19 different prompts to get the radius right, isn't it a better solution to build the WYSIWYG editor that gets you to the point that you need to be, given that it knows how to build a WYSIWYG editor? It's better at building the editor than it is in interpreting the things that you want as an average prompter.
I'd say yes. That's usually my jam. I go back and forth and back and forth. No, it's not quite what I wanted. Please try again. Or that's broken. That's not rendering. What's going on? It's conflicting with this Ajax code. But I don't use Gemini that much, right? So it doesn't have that history with me. It doesn't know. So maybe just as users in the aggregate who are dealing with problems like this, it says this is a better way to give you this information. I don't know. For me, it just felt like I'm just going to show off now. Oh, you asked for this code snippet? I'm going to build you an app to adjust that code snippet. That is crazy. Building these real-time web apps is just such an unlock.
The other part that I don't think you're mentioning is that probably took like 60 seconds.
Unlock.
Unlike doing it in Replit, it pops up really fast. Behind the scenes, I mean, it's very impressive that it popped up, but it knew what that is supposed to look like, because that's a well-established like user interface type experience. It's lift in yielding that user experience was lower just to grab it out of a library somewhere and do some minor customization to it than it would have been to reprocess all of the context in that ongoing conversation. And as we grow more and more density of experience with the type of things that people are vibe coding, this is just conjecture, but it sounds smart to me that would be a better approach than just letting ill-informed non-developers who don't know how to do scope go wild on extremely resource-intensive tokens.
Yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. I totally agree. So, as it stands, seeing that demonstration, right? Seeing the way that it analyzes video, as you mentioned, just the writing output, really impressive as well. I started the whole thought experiment of, okay, I've got all these team members like you. We have been a very loyal OpenAI house. That is usually what we pay the most seats for. I have, I don't know, at last count, maybe 40 custom GPTs, a lot that I share out with the team for different workflows. And I started thinking through, wow, if I'm going to get really good at one model and I'm going to pay for a bunch of licenses, am I on the wrong model? So here's the kind of nerd I am, Kevin. I just dropped my kids off at school and I'm, it's just what I had on my phone and I'm used to conversing with it. I open up the voice GPT and I just start talking and asking a bunch of questions. And maybe it's lying to me because it's a competitor. But here's what I found out. So it hasn't even been that long that you could create a gem, which is Gemini's version of a custom GPT, and share it with a team member. Hasn't been that long you'd be able to do that. It used to just be in your own little silo. You'd create one as for your own use. You could share the instructions, whatever prompts you use, but you can actually share that actual one and have it update whenever you made that update for the rest of the people you shared it with. That's kind of new. Now, the other thing that they would do is when I was looking to upgrade to the paid version of Gemini, so I could get the cool new stuff and not run into limitations, I realized that because I'm on this Google Workspace, if I did that with my work domain, I was upgrading everybody. And we're talking about around 100 seats, right? Can't remember the exact price at the time, but I want to say it was at least another $10 per seat. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a lot of people who have no idea how to use it. They're not going to get utility out of it at this point in their roles. It wasn't really evolved at that point. And so I used my personal Gmail to get my paid license for that, right? But where is the pitfall there? You'd mentioned it's getting really good at tying into your Google Docs, the rest of the things in your Google Workspace, searching your Drive, being in Sheets and everything else. But now I'm using this SSO, the single sign-on, for my personal account. It's not attached to all of my work stuff. And I'm like, oh, crap. Have you dug into this at all, like this whole conundrum?
I mean, I have the same problem in that we are all currently we have Gemini licenses. We're not using the Ultra license, which is the $200 a month
Right.
version. Not fancy enough for that. But we do also maintain independent Gmail accounts that then create all kinds of sharing issues and complexities
So
with,
that you can have that upgrade without upgrading like
yeah,
100 seats.
yeah. It's
Allegedly, it changed. According to this conversation, you can now cherry pick seats in your organization to upgrade. And I'm going to throw this out there as unverified because I don't know, LLMs might lie sometimes. I don't know why I would lie about this, right? Some people call it hallucinations. I call it you're a liar. But evidently, you can now pick and choose the upgrades that you want inside of your workspace. Kevin's going to be furiously typing, being like, is this true? Is this not? And it's funny that we haven't really got a chance to catch up this week on all this stuff. So I'm like, I was going to talk about it on the show because for me, that's a game changer. Like that is a complete game changer. One of the big things that we saw with GPT this year are these different tool calls. The first release, they just didn't really work. We would say, oh, sure, you can have access to my Gmail. Tell me the most important emails that I've had like in the last week and just give me a summary. Oh, I can't really find those. It's not working. Then all of a sudden it started working better and better. But to have something native to that whole ecosystem, if you're already in that workspace, that's a huge unlock for AI at work. That's huge, right?
Mhm.
And if I don't have to give it to 100 people and I could give it to, a core team of, let's say, 20 people, like just take my money. Where do I put my credit card in?
Well, and then when we talk about workflow amplification, I can't stop talking about N8N and how cool it is, but at the end of the day, N8N is great because it offers a ton of flexibility to connect a bunch of things together. But if what you're trying to connect together is in the Google universe, and Google's own tools are going to be at least semi-designed to work together, it's going to make a ton of sense just to lean into those tools, particularly when you can get to the point of, this is the problem that I'm having. And Gemini will say, hey, well, you could do it this really complicated way, or you could use this suite of tools and we can string them together. Would you like to do a test? Sure, I'd love that. And on you go. The friction will continue to decline in developing those solutions, whereas everyone else basically is going to have to still be doing some version of digital duct tape.
Yeah, you're a HubSpot user too, right? HubSpot, if you're listening, happy to have you sponsor us. You're a HubSpot power user, right, Kevin?
Well, when you put it that way for a sponsor call, I can't say I'm a begrudging HubSpot user, but I'm a begrudging HubSpot
You
user.
begrudgingly approve those credit card charges every month.
I do, and it makes me angry every month. No, actually, I like HubSpot. I think they're innovating. I think they could do a lot faster for sure, and we're not really patient for it. So I suspect where you're going is like I don't really care about HubSpot's development timeline. I care about my needs. And
Right.
given the capabilities we have internally, we're just creating the workflows we need. I'm not waiting for HubSpot Breeze to fix my world. And they're infinitely transferable.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about is on Breeze, say that it was going to fix your world. I think at some point, if you wanted Breeze, then all of your CRM users would get Breeze and that upcharge per seat would go up like crazy. I was talking to a strategic partner yesterday who is also on HubSpot, pretty big instance, lots and lots of seats. And they said that they actually found Breeze really helpful and they are AI shop, like a big AI shop. I was like, really? And it's just funny because when you're away from these tools for a while, very often when you come back, they're doing things that they never did before. And you may have had an opinion that is now completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, oh, no, I can pick the team members that I want to have Breeze. It doesn't have to be everybody. It's like, oh, maybe all the cool kids are doing it now. Maybe Google actually is doing this now. Maybe HubSpot's doing it now. We are on ClickUp. They power a massive, massive chunk of our organization. Again, they have an AI layer built over GPT. But it has become more and more useful and you have X number of tokens per seat. And so I'll try stuff and then hit the limit almost immediately and think, that was kind of useful. It was already in the tool. I didn't have to connect anything like you were talking about the way Gemini works in the Google Workspace. But if I want to have it, then everybody gets it, and I bump up against that, 100 plus problem again of massive, massive charges. So yeah, as a HubSpot user, I was curious if you had gone back to Breeze, played with it more, if you saw a change in the way that the actual seats and licenses work.
I'm just impatient. I mean, I don't, the way it's doing things is not the way that I want it to do things. And it's easy enough for me to build the suits. I'm doing so, but you're not wrong at all that these platforms are all getting better. Where I think that they probably have it wrong is that they think that they can just keep charging an additional $1 or an additional $10 per seat or $50 per seat, and there'll be a period where they'll get away with that. But as the friction continues to decline, I think that they are going to be put under a bunch of pricing pressure. I mean, I know that you use Pipedrive. Pipedrive isn't as techy as HubSpot is, but when they start popping up with these features, or they make it really easy for you to connect to your ClickUp or whatever you're doing, like the switching cost declines between leaving HubSpot and going to Pipedrive, and the feature gap declines as well. And that's going to be a problem for a lot of these platforms, I think.
I totally agree. And that whole pain of changing as well, right? When you start jumping around, I think one of the big challenges right now is that uh, using all the different frontier models, it really felt like with just the capabilities of using this at work and the shareability and everything else and costs, like, yeah, GPT just kind of feels like the way to go. And now I'm thinking that may not be true. And just everything that you said about Google, you're not wrong. You're completely 100% on the money with all those observations and where this could be going. But what if in a month, all of a sudden OpenAI comes out with something we're like, oh my gosh, I can't live without this, right? And that's the game everybody plays right now, right? Is we don't know. We don't know what is going to be unveiled, a year from now, let alone a week from now. It's just a lot of this stuff really hits you out of nowhere.
Well, we'll see what gifts the AI Santa gives us by the end of the year, because it's been quite the week as far as updates, and I think there's probably more to come.
Yeah, totally. Well, I don't want to lean too much into the news, but there was also some news that came out of the New York Times talking about jobs and coding. I saw that you left a note on that, and not sure if you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
I think we're gonna have to leave that one for next time.
It's a big one. I mean, it's like so much of it. What else do you want to go into, Kevin? We got like an endless amount of topics here. I had talked about a workflow that was very meta in terms of my organization, which was creating these SOPs or playbooks or whatever you want to call them. We had that. I know there was some stuff that you wanted to get into. I've been talking too much. I took the whole thing with Gemini 3, so go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think that's just sort of a tease for next time, I'll say. There's always more for next time. But this has been great, Eli.
Yeah, I know. For me, honestly, my entire week has been consumed with Gemini 3, and I haven't had time for much else, including a lot of work I was supposed to do. Instead, I was playing around with this model and seeing what we might do with it next. But yeah. Well, you going anywhere for Thanksgiving, Kevin? Or are you staying here?
I gotta go. I gotta go.
Oh, you're leaving right now for the Thanksgiving road trip. I gotcha.
No.
Your wife's got the car outside. You got to go do it. All right. Go do it. We'll see you.
Bye.
See you, Kevin. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to send us a question to answer on the show, email me at elijah@spark6.com. That is SPARK6.com, or Kevin@ascendlabs.ai. To learn more about AI strategy and training for your business, visit Kevin's company, Ascend AI Labs, at ascendlabs.ai. And to learn more about design and development of custom AI solutions, visit my agency at spark6.com. You can also sign up for my free newsletter, AI Framework Friday, by visiting spark6.com/newsletter.